Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney. Disney has wrecked their business. Their CEO Bob Iger now says they will surrender in the culture war. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Okay, coming from Outkick, Disney to quiet the noise in the culture war as their business craters, according to CEO Bob Iger speaking at an investor conference. CEO Bob Iger told investors on Wednesday that Disney plans to ease political tensions between the company and its customers. This is one of the main fundamental problems with Disney. They've gone ahead, they've woke up all their brands, they've disappointed their customers, they've pushed themselves far into politics and to agendas and distanced themselves from their family values. They've gone so far away from family values that their brands are completely disconnected from what people liked about them in the first place. Another major issue is Bob Iger doesn't even admit to this being political. He just thinks it's completely natural. He thinks any other view than the woke politicized view is illegitimate. So there isn't even two sides. There's just his side and everything else is just not to be seriously considered, even though their customers obviously never felt that way. One would say at least half of them, but it's much more than half of them because the people that are interested in Disney are interested in the brands of Disney. When you change the brands, there's a major disconnect. So with Disney getting beaten up on their stock price, with their streaming not working out, with people complaining about the theme parks, having male fairy godmothers, the CEO Bob Iger is now forced to tell investors, yes, we're going to back off on this stuff. But are they? Iger described the efforts as, quote, quieting the noise in the culture war, an industry phrase that depicts the social divide between the left and the right. Quote, Iger's brief statement, included in an analyst report from media analyst Laura Martin, was part of an investor's presentation on Tuesday at Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida, in which the CEO also announced Disney will double its investment in theme parks and cruise ships over the next decade, according to the New York Post. Though always political, Disney further fractured its reputation in 2022 when it publicly opposed Florida legislation and then eventually the law that was passed, restricting classroom discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity, known falsely as the Don't Say Gay law. And this is for children from kindergarten through third grade. How could Disney, a family-oriented company, that's what it was before Bob Iger decided to change the nature of the company, how could they possibly go against something like that? Well, that's what they decided to do. Bob Iger wasn't the CEO at the time, but he was influencing the company because he was still associated with the company and harassed current CEO Bob Chapek into making a major mistake to start a conflict with the state of Florida. Disney sought clout in its opposition, but ultimately lost more support in its decision than it gained. The brand's reputation increased to 80.3 from 72.5 among Democrats, while it plunged to 61 from 75 among Republicans, according to an Axios survey. Americans then voted Disney the fifth most polarizing brand in the country due to its polarizing political drama. Nobody wants political drama mixed in with their children. A few people must, but generally people don't, especially with Disney, because it's one thing to do it with a product that doesn't affect children, and it's one thing to do it with a company that's not centered on family values. But when you infect a company with family values, with this idea that you need to push agendas on children, it doesn't sit well with parents. Parents, of course, are naturally protective of their children. Now, Disney doesn't care about its reputation on the right. However, it cares about its bottom line. And therein lies the reason for Iger's comments about the culture war. Disney has recorded an excess of $900 million in losses over its last 8 films, several of which exposed children to gender ideology. The politicization of the company did not impress parents or foreign nations. Several countries, including Muslim nations, refused to carry Pixar's Lightyear last year for a scene in which a same-sex couple kissed. The scene played well on Twitter, but the scene didn't play well in reality. Plus, Disney is in a legal snafu with DeSantis over land that the company self-governs to great tax benefits for Disney. Quote, Florida and Disney are in a battle over the formation of the Central Florida Oversight District Board, which assumed oversight of development in nearly 25,000 acres of property in and around Disney's theme parks, adds the report. If Disney does actually back off and gets out of pushing agendas on their customers' children, it will be because of feedback from customers and feedback from parents saying, no, we absolutely will not accept this. And no, you cannot just count on us to keep giving you money if you keep doing this kind of stuff. Disney's really destroyed their reputation since 2014. Also from Outkick, Disney's reputation plummets following the Don't Say Gay opposition. In 2014, Axios Harris found Disney carried a reputation score of 83 out of 100. The score represents measurements across multiple dimensions, such as character, trust, and trajectory. That number has since declined to 70.9. You can just see the massive decline there. The company now ranks 5th as the 5th most polarizing brand out of 100. Investors are also not impressed with Disney's plan, which was also released with this announcement at the investor conference, to spend $60 billion on expanding their theme parks. And the reason why investors aren't impressed with Disney's plan to just spend another $60 billion on theme parks over 10 years is because the company reported operating cash flow of just $6 billion last year, less than half of its peak of $14.3 billion in just 2018, 5 years ago. It also already has a hefty amount of debt at about $44.5 billion at the end of June. The theme park business has healthy operating margins. Historically, it's been able to generate returns on invested capital in the low to mid-teens. Analysts and Citi figure that if Disney can achieve a 15% return on invested capital from the increase in investment, it could add as much as $2.40 in value per share annually. But Disney shares are trading at just 2/5 of their 2021 peaks. Parks are not enough. Iger still needs to find fixes in Disney's other divisions. It's funny to see how DeSantis, governor of Florida, is depicted as going completely on the warpath after Disney. He really didn't do that much. He just called them woke a few times. He didn't do much of a publicity campaign. I thought Iger was much more effective in saying that DeSantis is anti-business in Florida, that he's anti-Florida. DeSantis didn't even respond to that. You can see in Yahoo Finance, they're freaking out about DeSantis's relentless retaliation efforts to destroy Disney, cutting road maintenance, ending minority programs, and building a state prison near the theme parks. I don't think he's mentioned the state prison more than once or twice, and that was before he started to realize, okay, there's other things we can do here. The odds of Disney winning their lawsuits or being able to control the special tax district they used to have are pretty much zero. Iger knows that. DeSantis has to know that by now. Disney has just been delaying the inevitable, which is something people do in lawsuits. DeSantis is cutting budgets for road maintenance, and part of the reason for that is the legal expenses of having to fight with Disney. These are the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that the state of Florida cut. The demise of diversity programs and legal concerns. Another significant policy change is the board's decision to dismantle all existing diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The board went so far as to label the initiatives discriminatory, un-American, and an unnecessary financial burden without specifying the alleged costs involved. The board actually did specify and said, look, you can't require vendors to have certain diversity quotas and force them to spend more money delivering services. You can't exclude certain races from contracts. It's just not legal. Further insight into the move came from a report by the Orlando Business Journal, which revealed that their legal team had expressed concerns about the legality of certain programs. Specifically, they questioned the Minority Women Business Enterprise Program and Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Contracting Programs, arguing that they could expose the district to legal liabilities. District Administrator Glenn Gilzian formally announced the changes, contending that the programs discriminated based on gender and race. And they clearly did discriminate based on gender and race. After the Supreme Court finding that colleges could no longer apply affirmative action standards, race-based admissions for colleges, it's now expanded way beyond just colleges and is part of several lawsuits against several organizations. There is no reason for Florida to continue these kinds of practices which open them up to lawsuits, but also are just expensive and inefficient. And Fortune had this piece where Disney's $60 billion spending plan is a not so subtle signal to investors it has the firepower to buy Hulu. Disney has been announcing that they're going to be buying the 1/3 of Hulu that they don't already own. It's expected that could cost anywhere from $10 to $20 billion. There are a number of different ways they can finance it. And it's a great point that by telling investors, hey, listen, we're planning on spending $60 billion on expanding our theme parks, so don't worry about us raising $10 or $20 billion to pay off Hulu. Not direct, kind of subtle, but it does get the point across. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Do you think that Disney's actually going to turn themselves around? Do you think they're going to at least try to turn themselves around? Or do you think this is just more smoke where they're trying to tell investors, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to turn things around. But in reality, they're going to stay woke and not make any substantial changes. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. And I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.